This is the World Financial Report podcast. My name is Randy Marshall. Joining us is our financial and diamond expert, Harold Siegel. We're taping on November the 8th, 2018. Our time is 8:06 Mountain. Connect with Harold at rarecoloreddiamonds.com, rarecoloreddiamonds.com. Learn about blockchain and learn about rare colored diamonds. As we start today's podcast, on Sunday in the United States, it's Veterans Day. In Canada, it's Remembrance Day. We did get through the time change, by the way, last weekend. So yes, we do remember and honor the veterans in the United States and Canada, those that are serving currently. Most people have Monday off here in Canada. US dollar this morning is at 96.13. Canadian dollar 76.32. The euro at 1.14. The pound at 1.31. Gold 12.21. Silver 14.37. Gold silver ratio is 84. Platinum 8.66. Palladium 11.02. WTI 61.16. Brent is 71.60. Nat gas 3.54. Bitcoin $6,487. Bitcoin in Canadian, 8,496. The Dow at 26,186. S&P 2813. NASDAQ 7528. And the TSX 15,369. The midterm elections finally done on Tuesday. The House went to the Democrats. It was not a blue wave. Everyone was predicting the Democrats would win in a major way. Did not happen. In fact, Donald Trump did something that a president has not done in over 100 years. He, in his first term, after 2 years, gained seats in the Senate. That has not been done in over 100 years. So Trump is a formidable politician, whether people like him or not. He's somebody to be reckoned with in 2 years' time when he goes up for re-election. This morning, breaking news, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking if you love country music the way I do. We remember back well over a year ago in Las Vegas, the Route 91 shooting. October 1st, 2017, Jason Aldean was on stage and a madman started shooting from a hotel. Well, this morning, a war veteran slaughtered 12 people at a bar in Southern California. It was college country night. Person who did this, Ian Long, 29 years old, went in through smoke bombs before opening fire. There were actually people that were at Route 91 in Vegas that were inside this event. It's just so sad when we see these things happen, whether it be the synagogue last week. Now we have other country fans being affected, similar to a Route 91 event. It's just heartbreaking to see, and I believe very strongly in personal rights, but a person does not need to own a machine gun or an AK-47. There's no reason for that. You might have the right to bear arms. That goes beyond anything a person needs to have. And thoughts and prayers go out to those people in Southern California.
It sure is, Randy. I mean, it's a waking up to just absolutely horrible news. In fact, when you look at the last year, you had the Parkland shootings where 17 people were shot. Now, Parkland, which is where I live, is considered one of the safest cities in all of North America and considered the safest city in South Florida. And then you had 17, people that were shot at that school shooting. Then you had last week the shootings again in Pittsburgh at the synagogue, again in a beautiful, safe neighborhood. And now this shooting last night or this morning was in part of California, Thousand Oaks, which is a beautiful, safe area. So we've had 3 massive killings and shootings in the past year, all in very safe areas. There's almost no place safe anymore. You can't send your kids to school without worrying, that a shooter is going to shoot up the school. Or you can't go to synagogue or to church to pray where you're supposed to be safe, without worries of being shot and killed. And now this, college kids going to let off some steam, go to a line dance with a bunch of friends, and next thing you know, 11, 12 people are shot. It's unconscionable, Randy, to think that this is happening at this particular time, and we're not learning anything from it. It just keeps on happening and happening and happening, and nobody does anything to right the ship. It's reached a point where people are just getting, so upset by this, and rightly so. But the fact is, nothing is changing. It all revolves around money. It all revolves around the gun industry and that type of thing. And there's got to be changes because, we're getting killed off. You can't go and pray at a place that's supposed to be safe without fears of being shot and killed. So it's an unbelievable time that we can't send our children to school without worries if they're going to come home or not that night. So you're right, Randy. Our hearts go out to everybody that's involved, but we've been saying this way too much. We said it last week. We've said it, at the Parkland shootings. It's too much already, and nothing is changing. I just don't know what to say about it anymore. It's a ridiculous situation that doesn't seem to be, getting any better. Everybody is very, very upset about what's happened over the last 2 weeks.
After the election, the United States continues to be very polarized. Take a look at it. You have the Democrats with the House, Republicans with the Senate and the presidency. You will have gridlock. It's very difficult to make money now. And people believe that with the paralysis, you're going to see what some investors like, gridlock. And gridlock can be a very good thing where politicians can't do anything. But in our free weekly newsletter you can get from Harold, go to rarecoloreddiamonds.com, chart of the week. A record number of markets now are in the red in the worst year, and this is stunning, since 1901. 2018 will go down as the worst year for markets ever by at least one measure. A whopping 89% of assets have handed investors losses in U.S. dollar terms, more than any other previous year going back more than a century. The metric comes courtesy of Deutsche Bank AG. Macro strategists featured the chart in one of their publications. But it tells you a lot, Harold, which we've said for a while now. It's very difficult to make money in any market whatsoever. Since 1901, 89% of investors have lost money in U.S. dollar assets.
And that isn't because the U.S. dollar has fallen. It's because the markets are not what people think that they are. And we've said this so often that after 2008, when the markets crumbled, most of the middle class lost all of their money that they invested in stocks. They are not astute investors. So basically, they follow the trend and, put their money into the retirement savings plans, and you buy Apple or you buy Google or you buy whatever you buy. But the fact is that the markets have not been as great as people think. The middle class has not been able to get back into the market. The stock market is extremely expensive, where most people can't afford to buy Amazon stock or Apple or any of those stocks at this point. So I think a lot of it is just smoke and mirrors. The fact is that the country is not doing as well as people, as it appears to be. You look at the unemployment numbers and you say, okay, great, people are back to work, but how much money are they making? The other things is that not only is the economy not as great as it seems, and we've seen numerous reports, where people cannot retire in the United States, where if they do have an emergency, 60 or 70% don't have $1,000 of cash in order to get out of trouble. So how good are things at this point? And the fact is that there's a lot of landmines out there. There's a huge multi-trillion-dollar debt. There's interest rates going up on that debt. There's fighting with China. There's fighting with Iran, with Canada and Mexico. We've got a divided country here where the blacks feel that the whites are not treating them fair. That's a civil war type of situation. Then on top of that, you've got other religious situations. 57% of all hate crimes are against the Jews, which again strikes me as so odd, because the Jewish people are such passive people. So I don't understand the hatred and why almost 60% of the hate crimes are against them. So we're living in a difficult time. The political climate is frightening. People either love Trump or hate Trump. I'm afraid that the elections in 2 years are going to be extreme. The hatred that we're seeing as a result of the political situation is real. You're afraid to tell anybody what your political affiliation is today. You don't want to say that you support Trump because you could get beaten up or killed. It's an unbelievable time that people are that animated and that crazy over the political situation in this country and other things that are going forward. It just appears that things are falling apart in the United States, and I'm not certain that this president is one that can keep things together. The markets were very volatile during the elections type of thing, and I think that at this point that the outcome is somewhat satisfactory. Obviously, the Republicans wanted to hold everything, and that's not the case at this point. So nothing is going to really get done, and there's going to be more and more animosity. And you're right, Randy, it's very difficult to make money in any market today. I would say that the stock market is as speculative a market as anybody could trade. You don't know what's going to happen one day to the next when you get up in the morning. You're waking up to, a mass killing in California. You're waking up to the results of the elections. What happened in Pittsburgh last week. You've got all these scenarios that are happening on a daily basis, and how does it affect the financial markets? Well, very little affects the financial markets. It would have to be a total attack on Wall Street in order at this point here, for the Dow to fall substantially, or something substantial happening geopolitically, either between China or something like that. But at this time, it's very hard to make money. Getting into a stock market when it's at 26,000 and hasn't dropped in 20 years or in 10 years is not a smart idea, no matter what. It's like getting into real estate in Canada at the very top. You don't do those type of things. You sit back and you wait for an opportunity. For me, an opportunity in the Dow would be it would have to come back 20 or 25% or more in order for me to have any interest in going back into that type of market, which we haven't been at in years. So the metals markets are trading in a range. Gold is trading between 1180 and 1230. You can't make money trading in a market with such a small spread. The same thing with silver. Oil's been falling, not making the moves that we were hoping with the new sanctions against Iran. So really, it's extremely difficult to make any money in any market today without taking a speculative risk, and that's not something that we're recommending at this time, is that you speculate in any of these markets. It makes no sense at this time. In fact, 90% of the people that are trading are losing their money, and that is not a good thing. So my suggestion at this point, because we don't have any recommendations for you, we aren't going to say to buy gold at this point because gold is not a short-term, screaming buy type of thing. And, where we do believe in gold long-term as a hedge against inflation, which is one of the reasons why interest rates are going up. Interest rates going up is going to hurt the overall economy in the United States because the debt that the U.S. is carrying is the largest in history. And Trump is really pissed off that that the Fed is raising interest rates, but they have to raise interest rates. It's the way you fight inflation. And raising interest rates strengthens the U.S. dollar. A strong U.S. dollar is not good for gold. So, again, at this point, we want to own gold because, number one, the price is fairly inexpensive compared to the highs that we saw in 2011, which was $1,900. So the price at $1,200, we're picking up $700 from the high. That's not a bad thing. The problem is that is gold going to break out? And what would take gold breaking out would be a lower U.S. dollar. So I just don't see that happening at this particular point with inflation and rising interest rates. So on the other hand of it, though, you do have a marketplace that could definitely run because of the situation with China and other scenarios out there like derivatives, which is a frightening market. It's in the quadrillions of dollars. It's not regulated. It's not a well-understood market. And in 2008, when Lehman and Bear Stearns went out of business, a lot of that was to do with their handling of that market, of the derivatives market, which absolutely destroyed their companies. So again, at this point here, when it's difficult to make money, people get very nervous. and they start taking unnecessary risks and they speculate. I'm warning us at this particular point, that's not the right thing to do because there is no runaway market at this point. The dollar is trading in a range. The Dow is trading in a range. In fact, the Dow is down for the year. President Trump has been hanging his hat on the fact that the Dow is up and everyone's making money. Well, that's not the case. The market's down for the year, and it's not looking good. And the dollar is trading in a range. The only reason at this point that the dollar is strong is because the Fed is raising interest rates, to ward off inflation. So my recommendation at this point here is to sit pat. Don't speculate. Don't take unnecessary risks. Eventually, something is going to happen in the market, and we're going to be able to identify it as a potential trend. And we've caught many trends in the past. We caught the biggest bull market of all time from 2000 to 2011, gold from 250 to 1900. Nobody else called that market but us. On top of that, we called an oil market from $18 all the way up to 150. We caught the currency markets in the euro when it first came out. So we've had some tremendous trends that have made our clients over the years phenomenal amounts of money. But there's no trends intact at this particular point that we're going to recommend that you're going to invest in because we just don't see anything at this point that's going to make us any short-term money. So my suggestion is to sit pat. Don't take any speculative moves in these markets and just sit back and wait for an opportunity because just going out and trying to make things happen in this particular case is just not going to work out for us. There's no markets right now that are screaming buys or sells that we can make a lot of money off of. And if that's the case, it's just a matter of sitting back and waiting for our opportunity.
Harold touched on it. For some in the United States, the economy is not good. Despite the quote-unquote good economy, only 28% of Americans are financially healthy. Only 45% of people in a new survey said they have enough to cover 3 months of living expenses. By some measures, the American economy is booming. Corporations are raking in profits, unemployment low, but wages are relatively stagnant. A new report said that only 28% of Americans can be considered financially healthy. To give you some of the numbers, nearly half said that their spending had equaled or exceeded their income in the last 12 months. 44% of those relied on credit cards to make ends meet. Only 45% had enough to cover 3 months of living expenses, even though the majority of Americans say that they save whenever possible. 42% have no retirement savings, and 30% have more debt than is manageable. Now, renters are saying they're struggling. More than a quarter of U.S. renters in a survey are not confident they could cover a $400 emergency. Around 18% of homeowners report low emergency savings. More than 30% of renters feel insecure about food, as do 19% of homeowners in a Urban Institute study. Now, that other study was done by the Center for Financial Services Innovations. By our standards, things are not great. But if you look at the world in totality, we're still doing pretty well. Just how much money do you need to be among the global 1%? According to the 2018 Global Wealth Report from Credit Suisse, you need a net worth. And I thought to be in the 1%, you would have to have $1 billion or something. I was very surprised by these numbers. To be in the 1%, you would need a net worth of $871,320 US. Credit Suisse defines net worth or wealth as the value of financial assets plus real assets, principally housing, owned by households minus their debt. More than 19 million Americans are in the 1% worldwide. Credit Suisse reports far more from any other country, while China is now clearly established in second place in the world in the wealth hierarchy, with 4.2 million citizens among the world's top 1%. But this is where it gets even more interesting. To be among the top 10%, you don't need six figures. You need a net worth of $93,170. That will do it worldwide to be in the top 10%. And even if you have as little as $4,210 to your name, you are still richer than half of the world's residents.
And those numbers, I mean, if you want to brag and say I'm in the top 1% of the world, but $800,000, I'm not turning my nose up at it, but if you wanted to retire on that number and you're used to above average lifestyle, I mean, putting $800,000 into the bank and collecting 3% interest is $24,000 a year. What are you going to do on $800,000? How do you live for the rest of your life on that type of money when you still have to have a place to live? So what people are tending to do is they're tending to move to countries where the standard of living is way less. For example, I read a report the other day on Ecuador that in Ecuador, the weather is beautiful. It's a beautiful place to live. But the fact is, many Americans are moving there to retire because you could live on, less than $25,000 a year and live a nice lifestyle. Rents are $300 or $400 a month instead of $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Food is way less expensive. Healthcare is way less expensive. So they're touting places like Ecuador and Colombia and Brazil and, believe it or not, Italy and Greece and countries like that, where people could literally sell everything that they have in the U.S., move to a South American country, still live a very nice lifestyle, but on a fraction of what it would cost them in the United States. It was a report I read on Argyle the other day, and actually very interesting. But the fact is that those numbers are extremely deceiving because, aside from saying, I'm in the top, 10% of wage earners in the world, but I only am worth $94,000, just doesn't coincide with each other. So the numbers don't really mean much because to be in the top 1%, they're taking into consideration, the billionaires versus, the people in Africa and India and those type of places that don't earn any money. So the numbers are deceiving. Things are not as great in the United States as you think that they are. As far as renters go, more people are renting than they are buying these days. And if they're concerned that they're not going to be able to eat, or make their payments, their rent payments, then things aren't very good. So again, I think things are really lost in the equation, that you look at the numbers and they can be made to look as good as you want them to look, but you talk to most people in the U.S. and they're struggling substantially.
As I mentioned, a whopping 89% of assets have handed investors losses in U.S. dollar terms, the most since 1901, and it could get worse. David Stockman warns a 40% stock market plunge is closing in on Wall Street, and Stockman, who served as U.S. President Ronald Reagan's Office of Management Budget Director, believes that the early rumblings of the epic downturn are finally here. It comes as the S&P 500 index tries to rebound from its worst month since 2011. He said, "No one has outlawed recessions. We're within a year or two of one," and that was on CNBC's Futures Now. David Stockman has said this for quite some time. Ron Paul, former congressman in the United States, has been calling for a big pullback. We've talked about that. Truth is, we don't know when it's going to come, but it will come at some point. This stock market run is coming up here now. Next year will be 10 years. The liquidity is coming out of the system. Interest rates are going up. That means as we get closer to a possible recession, and that could coincide with Donald Trump going for re-election, it will be very interesting to see, does the stock market go down by a large amount, or does the plunge protection team come in and try and save the day? But at some point, Harold, reality will have to set in with interest rates going up, liquidity being drawn out, and you can only go so long with a bull market in stocks. 10 years is a long, long period of time. It's stunning that really we haven't had many big pullbacks along the way. There could be a big one in sight due to the fact we've gone so long without one, and it should be a wake-up call for everyone to be very cautious going forward.
You bet. Now, there's a situation that, when I talked about no markets at this point are worth investing in and the market is way too high, if the Dow came down by 40%, you know what's going to happen. I mean, we've seen it happen countless times. This market comes plunging down, people get scared, but you buy back in at the lows of those markets and just sit back and let the market come up. What could drop the market down, in my opinion, is if Trump gets knocked out in 2 years. If it looks like that Trump is going to get knocked out of office, that is one thing that would sink the market substantially. So when I say to sit back and wait, there are certain things that would be worthwhile to wait. I'm not saying at this point to short the Dow because we don't have the timing on it down. We don't know when this market is going to fall. But if it does fall, and it falls substantially, that is one opportunity, especially for younger investors that can stay in the market for a longer period of time. If you're in your 60s, 70s, 80s type of thing, and most of your money is invested in the stock market, I'd be very concerned because the chances of being able to make that money back are less and less because of our age. But if you're in your 30s or 40s and the market pulls back 30 or 40%, all people are going to do is buy it at the low and just sit back and wait for the market to come back up. And that's more than likely what we're going to recommend when and if this does happen. But there are certainly opportunities for that to happen. One of them, in my mind, is if Trump doesn't get back in because of the tax cuts and he's so friendly towards business. If Democrats got back in, well, then we're in a socialist government. Government takes care of all the people that don't want to work, and the whole economy changes, and things sink into the doldrums here. So again, we're going to have to see how things go. This was actually a fairly scary election because in Florida, Governor Scott got in, but he won by less than half a percentage point, and the senator who got in won by maybe a few thousand votes type of thing. And both of them were just edged out by the Republicans. But if that would have changed, things would have changed dramatically here in Florida. So, again, there are certainly landmines out there that could certainly disrupt the market. And the only thing, and I repeat, the only thing that is bullish about the U.S. right now is the fact that the Dow is standing at 26,000.
That was the thing I noticed, too. If you looked at the election results in the United States, all of them were very close. Yeah. 51-49 or 50.5 to 49.5. There was 50,000 votes that separated people. It was a very, very close election. Speak with Harold about rare colored diamonds. Rarecoloreddiamonds.com is his website. In our free weekly newsletter this week, we have some great stories investing in colored diamonds. Diamonds have been revered for their beauty for millennia. Nowadays, people taking a look at colored diamonds as an investment. Also, they came out with a price update. The Fancy Colored Research Diamond Foundation, there was an increase for blue diamonds. Blue diamonds did very well. Fancy Pink Diamond shatters record at auction at Bonhams. We have that story. Also, the 19-carat Pink Legacy Diamond could fetch $50 million at auction in Geneva, Switzerland, coming up November the 13th. Blue diamonds are going to lead Sotheby's auction in Geneva, November the 15th. So we have Christie's and Sotheby's in Geneva, one of them focusing on pink, the other big color, and that is blues. Also stories, what color is the most expensive for diamonds in the world? Will green diamonds become a Chinese investor's best friend? All these articles, if you have not seen them, get them from Harold. Connect with him at rarecoloreddiamonds.com. But here, Harold, in the next week or so, 2 weeks, we are going to get a very good idea of how well pink diamonds and blue diamonds are doing, as there are two major auctions coming our way.
Can't wait to see them. Blues have just done tremendously well since 2005 till now. They've gone up more than any asset that I know of. Pinks are doing amazing, but will do even better after 2020 when the Argyle mine closes. And we're banking on green diamonds doing very, very well, as we've invested heavily in the green diamond market.
As we get to the end of our podcast, once again, our thoughts and prayers go out to those affected by the shooting in Southern California. War vet slaughters 12 at a SoCal bar at College Country Night. And there were people that were at the Vegas massacre inside there as well. Talk about bad luck, but our thoughts and prayers go out to those individuals. Veterans Day in the United States on Sunday, November 11. Remembrance Day here in Canada. Don't forget to wear your poppy. And yes, we do remember those that served here in Canada and the United States, those that continue to serve. It is a very, very difficult time geopolitically in the world, and those people could be called in at a moment's notice to deal with some very serious situations. Harold, we thank our vets, and we thank those that are currently serving for all that they do for Canada and the United States.
You bet we do, Randy. They are everything to us, and again, they put their lives on the line for us on a daily basis, and nothing but maximum respect for all in the military, and again, all looking forward to spending that day remembering all the things that they do for us.
And as we end, we have to tip our hat to Harold Siegel, Bill Belichick, and Tom Brady. They beat my Packers. It was a great game up until the fourth quarter, 17-17, and we're running the ball, and here we go again, another fumble, and it just took the wind out of our sails, unfortunately, similar to the LA game. But Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, just legendary figures in football, and the way things are looking now, as crazy as it sounds, coming out of the AFC, it looks like Tom Brady and Bill Belichick could be heading to another Super Bowl. Wow. These guys just keep consistently doing it over and over and over again. And Mike McCarthy, the head coach of the Packers, he was very respectful and said so many nice things about the Patriots and Bill Belichick. Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady were very complimentary of each other, and so they should. But Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, this is something, Harold, that is so special. Every time you see them play, you're watching history in the making, and it would not surprise me at all if your team gets back to the Super Bowl again.
That would be great. It's great to see that respect in sports, because sports is, especially NFL football, is on the downturn because of the kneeling and the disrespect to the flag and everything along that line. So it's very nice to see that that's happening. It's great to see the Leafs still playing well, even without Austin Matthews, who's out for a few more weeks. And the surprise of all is the Toronto Raptors. Just very happy with the way they're playing. I think they've only lost one game, and in actual fact could be one of the best teams in the league again this year. So all in all, with everything happening around the world and the stress that we all carry with us on a daily basis, the reason that we talk about sports is because you can lose yourself in it, because it's a distraction, from the stress of everyday life and business type of thing. So, that's why we talk about it with some levity at the end of the show. But, it's needed because, the times that we live in are extremely difficult, and we've got additional pressures on us on a daily basis, that can be harmful to our health. So it's good to have some type of release. And for a lot of us, talking and watching sports is it. I want to wish everybody a wonderful weekend and a very profitable day.
Thank you very much, Harold. You can connect with Harold, get our free weekly newsletter via rarecoloreddiamonds.com. That is it. Another edition of the World Financial Report podcast. For Harold Siegel, my name is Randy Marshall. We will talk to you next week.